The cloth does indeed date back to the time of Christ, and with artificial intelligence having something to say about the shroud as well.
Scientists were convinced they had already uncovered every secret. Historians believed the mystery was finally solved. But when advanced AI was unleashed on the Shroud of Turin, it found something no human eye had ever detected. A hidden layer of information woven deep within the fibers. And what it revealed wasn't just surprising. It defied everything we thought was possible. Patterns that shouldn't even be there, details that completely shift our understanding of the image and of the man it may have once covered. Experts are now rethinking everything, from where the cloth came from to what science is actually capable of explaining. Whatever this is, it goes beyond reason, and once you see what was discovered, you'll understand why it's so unsettling. But before we get into this mind-bending revelation, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what you're about to hear could change the way you see history forever, the cloth that defied time. The Shroud of Turin is more than a religious relic. It's a mystery woven into linen. Stretching about 14 feet long and just over 3 feet wide, it carries the faint, ghost-like image of a man who appears to have been crucified, shown from both the front and back. The figure looks as if the body had been wrapped and then somehow disappeared. Blood-like stains mark the wrists, the feet, and the side wounds suggest a crown of thorns. And for centuries, people have been asking the same question. Is this the burial cloth of Jesus Christ? The earliest confirmed record of the shroud appears in the mid-13th century in France. It was displayed in the small town of Léré, where it instantly attracted crowds, pilgrims, skeptics, and controversy all at once. Skeptics accused the church of forging it for profit. Believers insisted they were witnessing something sacred. The shroud eventually came into the possession of the House of Savoy and was moved to Turin, Italy in 1578, where it still resides today, sealed inside a climate-controlled, bulletproof case in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. What has always set the shroud apart from every other religious relic is the image itself. At first glance, it's barely noticeable, just a faint blur on an old piece of cloth. But in 1898, when Secondo Pia took the first photograph of it, something astonishing happened. The negative plate revealed a clear, almost lifelike image of a man, his face, his hands, even individual strands of hair. People were shocked. How could a medieval relic display characteristics that resemble modern photography long before cameras even existed? From that moment, the shroud crossed into a new category. It wasn't just an object of faith, it became a scientific mystery. Over the years, researchers have put it through countless tests. Chemists, physicists, textile specialists, and forensic experts have all tried to unravel its secrets. The cloth itself is linen woven in a herringbone pattern, a style consistent with ancient Middle Eastern fabrics. Pollen found on the shroud comes from plants native to the Jerusalem region. Even traces of myrrh and aloes, both used in traditional Jewish burial practices, were reportedly detected. But none of this answers the real question. Who was the man on the cloth? In 1988, 3 laboratories conducted carbon dating tests. Their results dated the material to somewhere between 1260 and 1390 AD, seemingly confirming the idea that the shroud was created in medieval times as a forgery that should have settled the argument. But it didn't. Instead, it sparked a brand new one. Critics claimed the carbon-dated sample came from a repaired section of the cloth, not the original fabric. Others questioned the cleaning process used before the test. Even now, the carbon dating results remain one of the most fiercely debated aspects of shroud research. Despite the scientific efforts, the mystery only deepens. No paint, dye, or pigment has ever been definitively identified that could account for the image. No known technique, ancient or modern, can produce an image identical to what appears on the cloth. It even shows 3-dimensional properties. The shading changes based on how far the cloth would have been from the body it supposedly covered, But how could that be? Some say it's a miracle. Others insist it's an ingenious medieval fabrication, and some believe we simply lack the technology to fully understand it. But everyone agrees on one thing: the shroud is incredibly hard to explain, and the image on it should not exist. Now, for the first time, we may finally have the tools capable of revealing what humans never could. Because what comes next doesn't rely on microscopes or carbon samples. It uses something sharper, something that doesn't blink, something able to detect patterns the human eye was never built to see, and it has already begun its work. Science versus faith. The dating controversy. In 1988, scientists believed they finally had the answer. A carbon dating test, run by 3 major laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona, was expected to end the centuries-old debate. Each lab examined fibers taken from a small corner of the shroud, and all 3 concluded it dated between 1260 and 1390 AD. For many in the scientific world, that was checkmate. The shroud, they said, had to be a medieval creation, probably made to draw pilgrims or increase religious influence. Newspapers around the globe declared the mystery solved, but doubts surfaced almost immediately. The test sample came from the lower left corner, an area some researchers believe was damaged and rewoven during the Middle Ages. Textile expert Raymond Rogers later argued that this section might not even be original linen. He found chemical differences suggesting that the tested piece had been contaminated by centuries of repairs. If that's true, then the carbon date reflects the age of the patch, not the shroud itself. Making matters worse, the labs tested only that one small area. No samples from other parts of the cloth were compared. Looking back, many now see that as a major flaw. But at the time, access to the shroud was tightly controlled, and the church allowed only a tiny fragment to be used. That single limitation continues to cast a shadow over the 1988 results. Since then, countless follow-up studies have tried to challenge, refine, or reinterpret those original findings. One of the most intriguing came from Italian researchers using a technique known as wide-angle X-ray scattering, or WAXS. This technique analyzes the structure of cellulose in old fabrics to estimate their age. Their findings suggested the fibers might be nearly 2,000 years old, much closer to the time of Jesus. Skeptics quickly urged caution, arguing that WAXS can be heavily influenced by environmental conditions like temperature and humidity, which might distort its accuracy. Even so, supporters pointed out that while no method is perfect, WAXS provides another angle, an alternative viewpoint that challenges the official medieval timeline. Then came the pollen evidence. Botanists discovered pollen grains on the shroud from plants native to the Middle East, including species found around Jerusalem. Critics argued that contamination is always possible, especially after centuries of handling and exposure. But when this pollen data is combined with the shroud's distinctive herringbone twill weave, a pattern uncommon in medieval Europe but found in ancient Middle Eastern burial fabrics, the argument for an older origin doesn't collapse as easily as skeptics expected. And this is where things get even more complicated. Science relies on consistent, repeatable results, but the shroud refuses to fit into that clean structure. The deeper researchers dig, the stranger the evidence becomes. No one has fully explained the shroud's 3-dimensional qualities. No one has been able to recreate its facial features using any known medieval art technique. There are no brush strokes, no layers of pigment, just a faint discoloration on the surface, affecting only the top fibers of the linen. It's more like a gentle scorch than a stain. For people of faith, this only strengthens their belief. For scientists, it fuels both frustration and curiosity. Could the shroud truly be genuine? And were the tests simply flawed? Or was it created by a medieval artist using a technique we still can't understand? There's no final answer, only a growing divide between two worlds, one that demands data and another that seeks deeper meaning. Now, a new kind of investigator has joined the search, one with no bias, no beliefs, and no assumptions. Artificial intelligence doesn't ask what the shroud symbolizes. It asks how the image was formed. It doesn't debate faith or legend. It looks for patterns, anomalies, and processes, and lets the data speak for itself. The real question is, what will it uncover? Technology enters the tomb. For more than a century, the mystery of the Shroud of Turin has resisted every attempt to explain it. Traditional science couldn't solve it. Faith couldn't define it. Even photography, meant to clarify the image, only made the mystery deeper. But now a completely different kind of intelligence is stepping in. Artificial intelligence. AI doesn't believe, assume, or care about theology, history, or recognition. It focuses on one thing: pure, unbiased data. When scientists fed the shroud's images into advanced AI systems, the results shocked everyone. It began with an experiment by Brazilian digital designer Cícero Moraes, who used sophisticated 3D simulation software to study how a cloth like the shroud would fall over different shapes. In one simulation, he draped the cloth over a real human body. In another, he placed it over a shallow sculpted relief. The difference was dramatic. When laid over a real person, the cloth distorted, stretching across the shoulders, sinking into curves, bending at unnatural angles. The result looked nothing like the image on the actual shroud. But when Moraes placed the cloth over the sculpted surface, everything lined up almost perfectly. No stretching, no warping, no strange distortions. This raised an unsettling possibility. What if the shroud was never wrapped around a real body at all? Then came the next step: AI-enhanced image analysis. Researcher Thomas McAvoy and his team fed ultra-high-resolution photos of the shroud into an AI system designed to detect patterns that the human eye can't see. Using techniques like principal component analysis, PCA, the AI broke the image down into layers of data. What emerged wasn't just a face, it was structure, symmetry, mathematical harmony. The AI discovered that nearly all significant detail existed in the brightness of the image. Not in its color or shading, the light intensity itself created depth, behaving like a kind of encoded relief rather than paint. Even more astonishing, the discoloration touched only the very top fibers of the cloth, just a few microns deep. Modern lasers struggle to mark linen with that level of precision without burning holes in it. Yet this ancient cloth carries a flawless, ultra-shallow image. Some researchers have speculated that it could have been created by a sudden burst of energy, radiation strong enough to imprint an image without damaging the material others proposed early photographic processes. But no ancient or medieval technique matches the shroud's microscopic characteristics. Then the AI went even further. It began spotting details that experts had either missed or dismissed: faint symmetry across the chest, subtle structured marks near the jawline, unusual overlaps where blood stains sit on top of the image in ways that don't match normal transfer patterns. Even skeptics were forced to pay attention. The AI didn't prove anything supernatural. It didn't confirm religion or debunk it. But it did uncover a level of order, mathematical, visual, and structural, that doesn't match any known artistic, photographic, or printing method. No brushstrokes, no pigments, no transfer marks. Just pure, data-driven precision forming an eerily perfect image. So what does all of this mean? That depends on who you ask. Some say it's more evidence of a forgery, only now they argue it may have been created using technology far ahead of its time. Others believe it points towards something far beyond conventional science, something we still don't understand. Yet one conclusion became impossible to ignore. Even after stripping away bias, history, and belief, the image still refused to behave like an ordinary artifact. It acted like something created outside the boundaries of normal human experience, and the deeper the AI dug, the stranger the discoveries became. The pattern that shouldn't exist. The AI didn't just reveal clarity, it uncovered a contradiction. According to researchers, hidden deep within the data was something that was never supposed to be there. A faint, repeating geometric structure, subtle, almost ghost-like, but consistent. Some dismissed it as a digital artifact. Others argued it was far too precise to be accidental. Either way, what the AI found inside the Shroud of Turin left scientists stunned. Researchers emphasized that this wasn't simply a case of enhanced sharpness or cleaner outlines. The pattern showed up across multiple independent tests, whether they examined the shroud under ultraviolet fluorescence, thermal imaging, or high-contrast filtering. The same symmetrical structure appeared again and again, especially around the face and chest. It didn't resemble brushstrokes. It didn't match fabric folds or natural blood flow. It looked engineered. At first, the team suspected interference from the scanning process, so they ran controls. They analyzed unrelated fabrics. They randomized image data. Yet the structure still appeared. Even more unsettling, it seemed to follow mathematical ratios, a kind of hidden scaffold mapping the contours of the face, torso, and even the hands. One researcher, speaking anonymously, described it as a framework with no builder. The implications were unclear, but deeply unsettling. If the shroud were formed by direct contact with a body, the image should show distortion, just like the 3D simulations had demonstrated. If it were painted, researchers should find pigment, brush residue, or deeper fiber saturation. But the shroud shows none of these things. And now, beneath the already mysterious image, AI had uncovered a pattern no human had ever noticed before. Some proposed it might point to a lost technology, an ancient, unknown method of image projection, or a primitive form of photography. Others whispered a very different possibility. What if the image wasn't created by human hands at all, but by a sudden burst of intense energy, a flash of radiation, a plasma event, or something even harder to explain? That's when a phrase began circulating quietly behind the scenes, not in official papers, not in public interviews. Scientists whispered it to each other in private. This is terrifying. Not because it proved anything supernatural, but because it didn't fit into any natural category either. It behaved like a phenomenon, not a handmade object. Yes, the faint image shows the figure of a man. Yes, traces of blood appear in certain areas, but the image itself isn't made of blood. And stranger still, the shroud's image behaves like a photographic negative, centuries before photography existed. In quiet conversations, one physicist reportedly said during a confidential call, "It doesn't match anything we understand." At that moment, the mystery deepened. The shroud was no longer just a religious relic or a medieval curiosity. It seemed to be something else, an object whose image might not have been formed by touch, paint, or pressure, but by a process. And the most unsettling idea? That process might not be reproducible. Not now. Possibly not ever. So what does this mean for the shroud's origin? Is the strange pattern an illusion, a quirk of digital analysis, or is it the signature of something we haven't yet learned to recognize? That uncertainty unsettled even seasoned researchers, because AI doesn't speculate. It just reveals what's already there. And what it revealed hints at an energy event that didn't just create an image. It left behind a subtle mathematical order. To believers, this strengthens their faith. To skeptics, it signals the need for a new theory. But one thing is certain: a door has been opened, and it can't be closed. What AI uncovered in the Shroud of Turin shocked scientists, not because it offered answers, but because it handed them something more troubling. A better question: what if we were never meant to fully understand it? The symmetry the AI found, the layered precision, the hidden information, none of it seems normal. It feels out of place, as if the harder experts try to explain it, the more it slips away. Some see it as a message, others think it's a trace, the leftover imprint of a moment that can't be repeated. And this is where the unease begins. When an object defies every known scientific pattern, when no experiment can recreate it, two possibilities remain. Our technology is still too primitive, or the shroud captures something human beings were never meant to decode. Could it be a natural energy imprint from a phenomenon we no longer understand? Or, whispered more quietly, a single, unique moment that left behind a ghostly signature on linen? Some theorists believe the shroud might contain a kind of ancient encoded data, a visual imprint of something beyond ordinary experience. Others warn that this crosses into mysticism. But AI doesn't believe, it doesn't doubt, it just reads patterns, and every pattern it found looked deliberate. That's why the AI's discovery left scientists stunned, not because it solved the mystery, but because it revealed something no one was prepared for, a structure without a known process, an image without a clear origin, a result without an obvious cause. Maybe that is the point. Maybe the shroud was never meant to be solved, only witnessed. Maybe it isn't a message, but a mirror, one that reflects not just a face, but the vastness of what we still don't understand about life, death, and whatever lies beyond. It's not proof. It's not confirmation. It's something more unsettling, a mystery that deepens the closer you look. And this time, even the machine saw it. What do you think?